going. Thank you. Good afternoon, and I formally declare open this meeting of the Colac Otway Shire Council of 27th March 2024. Almighty God, we seek your blessing and guidance in our deliberations on behalf of the people of Colac Otway Shire. Enable this council's decisions to be those that contribute to the true welfare and betterment of our community. I would like to start this afternoon by acknowledging the traditional custodians and lawmakers of this land, their elders past, present, and welcome any descendants here today. Please be advised that this meeting is recorded and live streamed with the exception of confidential matters. This includes public participation sections of the meeting. The live stream recording of this afternoon's meeting will be available on the website as soon as practicable. By participating in open meetings, individuals consent to the use and disclosure of the information they share at the meeting, including any personal and/or sensitive information. I also take this opportunity to welcome those who have joined us in the public gallery and to advise you that the final item on the agenda today is confidential and the matter will be heard in a closed session. This means that when we get to this item, I will close the public section of the meeting and will need to ask any members of the public still present to leave the room whilst the item is dealt with. I thank you for that in advance. I note that all councillors are present today. Moving on to question time. Colac Otway Shire encourages community input, and integral to this is the opportunity provided to ask questions at council meetings. 30 minutes is allowed for question time at council meetings. Community members wishing to ask questions of council by video conference were requested to register their intention before the 5 p.m. on Monday the 25th of March. No requests were received. I have received questions in writing from Tim Cobb, Megan Bridger-Darling, Dean Hurlson from Council Watch, James Judd, Michael Fenton, Ian Davis, Jason Schramm and Rob Favato. We will be providing a written response. These questions will be read out and a response will be provided by the relevant member of the executive management team. In accordance with Council's governance rules, an individual written response will be provided to questions that have not been read out today. All written responses will be available in the minutes on the Colac Otway Shire website once confirmed at the following council meeting. Before I move on, can I have any show of hands of people in the gallery who might want to ask a question today? Thank you. We'll get to that. I'll move on to questions submitted in writing. First question is from Tim Cobb. Work to make a loop in Skeens Creek by linking the top of Old Coach Road to Hickey's Cutting is in the Shire budget and plans for this year. Can you tell me who is leading this piece of work, when it will start and when it will finish? As many of us in our community are keen to have it completed and in use. I am conscious that the 23-24 year is more than half gone already with no apparent progress so far. Response from General Manager, Community and Economy.
Through you, Mayor. Firstly, I acknowledge and apologise for our omission in not addressing your question at the council meeting on the 28th of Feb 2024. Council allocated a relatively modest amount of local roads and community infrastructure funding in the 23-24 budget to undertake some tactical works that would improve safety for people that use the link to Hickey's Cutting for informal and recreational walking. The intent was to identify one or two real pain points and try to address these. The scope of the project is still being finalised and we are trying to find a way to get a reasonable outcome for the funding allocated. It is anticipated that the project scope and revised cost estimates will be completed by the end of April, after which we will check in with councillors to ensure we've got agreement on the scope and then we can determine the appropriate delivery approach. We'll be able to provide the community with an update at that time.
Thank you. Another question from Megan Bridger-Darling. I'm keen to know if Council applied for grants in the Risk and Resilience Scheme. I can see they didn't get any, but I'd like to know that we were at least applied for some. The overgrown verges are a fire risk and funding could be requested to assist in getting the height and fuel down. Response from Acting General Manager, Infrastructure and Operations.
Through you, Mayor. No grant applications were lodged by Council under the most recent Risk and Resilience Scheme. Whilst the concerns of fuel loads on road verges are noted, this kind of roadside maintenance would not be eligible for grant funding under such programs.
Question from James Judd. Will the officers of Colac Otway Shire Council cease claiming that they check the toilets at the Memorial Square in Colac on a regular basis, unless they carry out an actual physical check of these facilities on a very regular basis to make certain all things at that location are in a fit condition and in working order? It is a disgrace when, after complaints to Council over many months, the hand dryer in the men's section is still not working and you cannot put up a sign out of order. The hand dryer has been out of order at least since last winter, and very long prior upgrade work started at the site. Plus, people leaving those facilities with wet hands is a major health issue. Acting General Manager, Infrastructure and Operations.
Thank you, Mayor. We appreciate the feedback provided on the Memorial Square toilets and will follow up the issue raised with the hand dryer. Council does spot audits of public toilet facilities to ensure that cleaning standards are regularly achieved and that facilities are maintained.
Mr Judd has submitted 2 further questions regarding renewables and power supply. However, it is unclear what is being asked and we will follow up with Mr Judd directly before we provide a written response. Another question from Mr Judd is about the toilets in the Memorial Square still going to be finished by the end of April 2024, or is this now running over time and the above contract amount? Response from Manager Community and Economy.
Through you, Mayor. The new Memorial Square toilets are on track in terms of cost and timing. The project is due for completion by the end of the 2023-24 financial year.
Thank you. When the Colac Otway Shire Council was considering changing water heating changeover at the Blue Water Complex from use of gas to using electricity, was my consideration given to the need to have an emergency heating system available? This is urgent due to poor electricity supply network in this region, plus no indication has been given that it will ever be improved by a specific date. Manager, Community and Economy.
Through you, Mayor. The Blue Water Leisure Centre does not have a backup power source, so when there is a power outage, the centre closes due to much of the infrastructure not being operational. Therefore, the electrification of pool heating infrastructure would have no impact on the centre operating during a power outage, as it would already be closed. It should be noted that power outages forcing the closure of the centre is not a regular occurrence.
Thank you. A question from Michael Fenton. When answering my question at the meeting of the Colac Otway Shire on the 28th of February 2024 in regard to the impact of the sand quarry operation at 165 Bushbeers Road to the adjoining residential properties, on what legal basis did Mr McNeil imply that Colac Otway Shire has no responsibility for the current land use conflicts that have arisen from the planning responsibilities of the then Colac Otway Shire, given that the then Colac Otway Shire created and approved a 76-lot residential subdivision commencing on 11/10/1976, including and abutting a 29.7 hectare commercial sand extraction operation that had an application pending on the 8th of the 6th 76 and approved on the 17th of the 11th 76 by and on behalf of the same applicant. I am not aware of any statute of limitations on local government responsibility in these matters. Response from Acting General Manager, Infrastructure and Operations.
Through you, Mayor. The answer provided at the February Council meeting was that Council does not have current responsibility for enforcement relating to the current quarry land use. The State Government Earth Resources Department is responsible for administering and monitoring for compliance conditions of the work authority governing the quarry operations. The then Colac Shire approved subdivision of land surrounding the quarry after its establishment, resulting in the current pattern of development in the area. This decision was made several decades ago under very different planning regulations in place at the time.
McNeil. I've missed one page, so I'll go back to Dean Hurlston, President, Council Watch Inc., Post Office Box 98 Chadston. We have three questions in relation to waste enforcement. I'll read out the three questions and then we'll get the answer. Question 1, what amount of waste enforcement costs in the current financial year 23-24 has the council included in its waste levies charged to residents? Question 2, what amount of revenue has council included in the current financial year 23-24 from waste enforcement actions? Has the revenue been offset in the waste levy or applied to council's general business revenue streams? Response from Acting General Manager, Infrastructure and Operations.
Through you, Mayor. Council's not included any waste enforcement costs in its waste charge to residents. Council's also not collected any revenue in the current financial year from waste enforcement actions, and there's not been any revenue from waste enforcement action in the current financial year.
Thank you. I'll go to a question from Rob Favata. On the 10th of March 2024, I wrote to Council seeking input regarding the secrecy provisions associated with Work Authority WA 220. As of the 24th of the 3rd 24, I have yet to receive an answer. In my email, I posed two related questions seeking input to Council's opinion of the Secrecies Act. Specifically, why a Secrecy Act, presumably intended to protect commercial aspects of business, is being used to prohibit operational aspects of the quarry from residents. I understand that Council has no responsibility for the Act. However, when I take the time to write seeking answers or an opinion from Council, I expect a response. Acting General Manager, Manager of Infrastructure and Operations.
Through you, Mayor. Council officers will follow up on this inquiry and ensure that a response is provided in writing. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I have a question from Ian Davis. Re the noise at the Barongarook Sand Mine in December 2023. As the Shire has a direct responsibility for the health and wellbeing of its residents, could you please tell me the results of this monitoring, as there has been no information forthcoming so far? Thank you. Acting Manager General Infrastructure and Operations.
Through you, Mayor. Officers will respond with any information it can share in relation to noise monitoring after tonight's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I have a question from Jason Schramm. In item 9.10, supply and delivery of 2.9 metre trucks, it states in section 5 considerations, subheading financial management, that the supply and delivery of the total contract value of $788,590 is within the allocated budget. If this is true, why then are council has asked in item agenda 2 to allocate an additional $141,500 for the purchase of the 2.9 metre trucks? Response from Acting General Manager, Infrastructure and Operations.
Through you, Mayor. The report on this item should have correctly stated that the contract price for both trucks exceeds the specific budget allocated to the items, but it's within the financial capacity of the plant replacement reserve, and that further allocation from this reserve is required to support the purchase. Budget adjustments to support these contracts are included in item 2 on this agenda. Thank you.
Question 2, why in item 9.10 is there no mention that the trucks have come in well over budget if an additional $141,500 is needed for the purchase? Acting General Manager, Infrastructure and Operations.
Through you, Mayor. The question's been answered with the previous question. Thanks.
Thank you. And question 3. In an item agenda 2, what is the budget and total cost for the A, the 3 metre truck, B, the 5 metre truck, and why haven't these trucks come before council, and why does management need another $52,000 for the delivery of these trucks? Acting General Manager, Infrastructure and Operations.
Through you, Mayor. The budget allocated for the 3 metre truck referred to in item 2 is $110,000. The budget for the 5 metre truck is $140,000. These adjustments are recommended at this time as recent market testing indicates that these are more realistic budgets.
Thank you. Question 4, what happens to the old 9 metre trucks and why haven't they been traded in to bring the costs down of purchasing the new ones? Response from Acting General Manager, Infrastructure and Operations.
Through you, Mayor. The trucks being replaced will be sold once the new vehicles have been delivered. The revenue from sale of these vehicles will be used to partially offset the cost of purchasing the new trucks and will replenish the balance of the plant replacement reserve.
And question 5, why is Council's 23-24 budget spend on footpath maintenance? What is the spend? Response from Acting General Manager, Infrastructure and Operations.
Through you, Mayor. Council's budgeted to spend $40,000 on footpath renewal/maintenance in 2023-24. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr McNeil. That concludes the written questions. Moving on to questions from the gallery. Show of hands if you'd like to come up first and introduce yourself and the question. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Graham Hill, the Secretary of Apollo Bay Community Voice. Is the Council aware that Apollo Bay Community Voice has recently carried out a quick pulse survey on the BSF proposal to import cattle through Apollo Bay Harbour, and that approximately 50% of our membership responded to our quick survey, and of those who responded, 80% were not supportive of BSF's proposal? We now intend to formally write to the Shire Council, GORCAPA, BSF, DECA, Department of Transport, our councillors and our local and federal MPs to make them aware of Apollo Bay community's concerns. Thank you.
So you don't have a question? Don't they? Are we aware? Who would like to answer the question?
I'm happy to respond, thank you.
Sorry, the question was, are you...
Are we aware?
Yeah.
Yep.
So thank you for your question, and through the chair. The Mayor and I actually did have a meeting with representatives of Apollo Bay Voice last week, which was great to catch up, and the matter of surveying the membership was discussed, and so we were provided an update on that, and when we receive any written correspondence, we'll make sure that goes to all councillors. Thanks.
Thank you. Next question. Thank you. Mr. Marriott.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors. My name is John Mariner. I'm a long-term resident of Apollo Bay. Pardon me. And given that my question relates to agenda item 9.1, I am a member of the Historical Society and a life member of the Apollo Bay Sailing Club. So my question is regards the Marengo Beacon. I understand there's been considerable discussion regarding this beacon, and various options have been put up. But my point is that I believe this is a very strong link to our maritime past. It's an intrinsic link to the life we lived here in Apollo Bay. And today we should be looking at some options rather than just leave it as it is at the moment, lying rotting in a heap in a council yard. And I should just point out that there's been discussions regarding the relevance of beacons. This is an item not that long ago produced by Colac Otway Shire. It shows the various leads, the ones in question, the ones above Skeens Creek. The only one it omits is a recently installed lead just done in the last 12 months that now sits above the information centre on the main street. So leads are still relevant today, even though we do have electronic devices and I have them on my boat and they break down, they're not reliable. But 1975 I was contracted by the Otway Shire to build a road down to the car park at the harbour and also level the dunes and re-establish build the car park down there. Along with that, we flattened the old rocket shed. Numerous other items are related to our maritime history. The only items left today are the two beacons at Marengo. It's the only link we have with our maritime past. It guided fishermen safely out to sea and guided them home at night. It's one thing we should preserve, and I'm just wondering, or will ask Council, what options have you considered? I believe there is an option to put it back. There's some discussion about the circle at the top, but surely there's some options which can preserve that beacon in its present state. I'm absolutely amazed at the price that was put out to build that. I can't believe things cost that much, but that's what happens when bureaucracy becomes involved. So my question is, will councillors consider some options that allow that beacon to be re-established on the Bunbury Point?
Thank you, Mr. McNeil.
Through you, Mayor, thanks for the question. Council has been presented with a report tonight which seeks a resolution on how to fund the reinstatement of the beacon. In that report, it does provide options for councillors in how they might consider the matter. One of them is to allocate the money that's been requested so that officers can proceed with the reinstatement. There's other options about not reinstating the beacon or instead of replacing the beacon, installing a sign or some plaque or some other measure. But the officer recommendation that's been put forward is for council to allocate the funds to reinstate it. It's for council to consider that tonight.
Thank you, Mr McNeil. Next question.
Thank you. My name's Tim Cobb. I live in Skeens Creek. I'm Secretary of the Skeens Creek Association. My question's about the little link walk between Old Coach Road and Hickers Cutting, which Mr Surin was talking about earlier. That's something which councillors resolved to put in the budget last year, and I was hoping 3 months ago would have been in the budget adjustments and cash, you know, your reallocation of funds thing, but it wasn't, so I sent a couple of emails to council and heard nothing. Put in a question at last council meeting and that got mislaid, so I'm delighted to have a bit of an answer from Mr Surin. What I'm a bit gobsmacked by is that the project, if you want to call it a project, is a couple of 100 metres of gravel path, and it seems amazing to me that we're still looking at scope and hope to have got scope in April. So this is something that council has resolved that they were going to put in the budget. So my question is, why isn't it, it wasn't in the last budget adjustments, why isn't it in this budget adjustments? And can we really have any confidence that it's actually going to happen, given that we're 9 months into the year and scope, whatever scope is for a bit of gravel path, is not established?
Mr Surin?
Yeah, through you, Mayor. Thanks for the additional question, Tim. It's not in the monthly project adjustments report because we're unsure. That report is about whether we need additional funding for projects or we've had cost savings that we then reallocate into a reserve or we close projects. So that's why you wouldn't have seen it in those reports. We're on site next week to have a good look at the scope. There has been some work done. We just want to clarify that before that we then determine, you know, what we actually need to deliver on the ground. So in terms of it happening, it will happen, and I think hopefully the response to your question today gives you some certainty around that.
So I'd expect it to see it in one of those adjustment things in future, would I?
If it needs more money or if we've had some savings, yes, you would. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions from the floor? Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Gary Riches. I was at the last council meeting with a few, I thought, quite simple questions. The removal of the undergrowth in the land care planted trees along Anderson's Creek. I come back again today because I hadn't had any response much really at all. No direction, no anything. I thought I'd found it myself, but it's a different part of Anderson's Creek. There's an area beside the industrial estate that's Colac Otway Shire has jurisdiction on. It's not the right area, so we need to move up the creek a little bit more north to find out what's going on there. So I thought I had something for you, and on closer examination tonight I've realised that it's the wrong piece of paper. But whoever's looking at it, if they haven't contacted Landcare, they haven't contacted Solemn, nothing's sort of really been done. You know, I don't know what your procedures are.
Mr McNeil?
Through you, Mayor, thanks for the question, Gary. My understanding is that officers have been in contact with you after the council meeting last month to talk to you about your concerns, and there has been attempts made to arrange a meeting with the Catchment Management Authority, who's responsible for the catchment, to discuss the vegetation removal that's occurred. An investigation is still occurring into what permits may or may not have been required under the planning scheme or otherwise for the vegetation removal that's occurred. So there's work occurring to understand permit requirements. It is private land, and so there isn't public access available across that land. But we'll be in touch with you shortly with some interim outcomes from that investigation.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr
So
McNeil.
being public land, we'll leave it at that for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions from the floor?
Tony Webber, Otway Forum. A few years ago, I asked a question on how much rates are collected in the Skeens Creek, Apollo Bay, Maringo area, and how much ratepayers' money is spent here. We got the answer there was 23% of the Shire's rates were collected in this area, and 11 to 12% of the revenue was spent in this area. Now, a few months ago, I asked the same question again. I received a reply on how much rate revenue was collected, but I haven't received a reply on how much was spent in this area. Would I be able to receive a reply at some stage?
I think that's for me to
Thank
respond
you,
to. Thanks
Celia.
very much, Mr. Webber. So the collection of the rate revenue we can easily track because we have clear property data that we can link revenue to, and so that's an easier one for us to provide information about. The issue about what money may be spent geographically across the Shire is much more complex because we have a lot of services that people can choose to opt into that might be Shire-wide services, etc. So it is much harder for us to then, with any real meaning, talk about how much is spent geographically in terms of our services. I accept that in terms of assets, okay, it is easier to track that geographically, but we do not budget on a geographic basis. We budget on where our policies guide us, on the service demand might be, on the direction of council strategies and plans. So how we budget is not based on a geographic, driver as such, and nor do we actually track all of our service expenses back to geographic things. So we can give indications about where our asset base is, what our asset base costs to maintain, when new projects are funded into certain areas. We can create something about that, but it needs to be looked at over time. When it comes to day-to-day operations, it's not something that we actually do in a geographic sense, so it's harder. We understand a lot of people are interested in it, and we'll continue to talk to councillors about what might be helpful information, but it's not a straightforward thing to collate that data in a meaningful way.
You answered the question years ago. It took a long time to get an answer, and this is over a 12-month period. It's not over a short period, so it has been possible in the past.
Yeah, I understand that information has been provided in the past. I actually am not confident of the integrity, really, of the process of trying to create that information. Even at that time, it was provided to give some indication, but I actually don't think it is necessarily a helpful methodology to repeat what was done then.
All right, thank you. Second question is on the Apollo Bay and Otway show, which was run 10 days ago. We were required to get a place of public entertainment or a pope, and we feel that that's an unnecessary burden on a small committee. We only have hundreds of people at the show, not thousands, and we're on Gorkappa land, which is, once wasn't Gorkappa land. We've only been required to do it in the last 2 shows. Popes, my understanding, have been around for many years, and we feel this is an unnecessary burden and we'd like not to have to follow through with it. We were requested to pay $650 and we don't know what we get for that. So we were able to get that waived, but we would like not to have to go through the process of applying for a pope. Would you be able to answer that question if we can avoid going through that?
So through the chair, I think it may be more of a request than a question. If the question is why have you only been asked the last 2 years, I can't answer that. I don't know if anyone else can. But we do understand this is a matter that many small event organisers, particularly community-driven events, right, find very challenging. It's just an extra cost. I understand that. That's a conversation we can have with councils around whether there's a way to support that. I don't know whether the issue around why your particular event needed a pope, I can't answer that one.
Right. Thank you, and thanks for coming to Apollo Bay.
Thanks, Mr. Webber. I think that is the... Oh, sorry. Jane? Last question, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors. Jane Gross, President of Apollo Bay Community Voice, long-time resident here. Just 2 quick questions, if I may. Firstly, further to John Mariner's question about the beacon, and I know that that's early on the agenda this evening, I was just wondering, in your options, whether, I didn't see any consideration of this, but I'm just asking whether it's possible to consider, if the cost is an issue, because I did notice that it was $20,000 or up to estimate, whether it's possible to involve community groups in how the beacon could be restored. For example, the Men's Shed, the Historical Society. There could be cost saving if there was some involvement from community groups to restore it. I think there is obviously, there's a lot of community interest in seeing it restored. So it was just an idea whether that could be considered as an option, involving community groups.
Who'd like to answer that?
I'm happy to respond.
CEO.
Thank you, Jane, through the chair. I'm sure that if the beacon is to be reinstated and restored, an opportunity to partner with the community would make complete sense, because we know they're the people who are passionate about it and may be able to help reduce some of the cost. So I think that if people want to let us know how they might be able to assist, if that's going to be reinstated, then that would be great. And of course, anything that reduces the cost, the funds just get returned to council through that standard practice that we have. Much of the cost, and I know that it seems like a lot, and I note Mr Marina's comment about bureaucracy, but much of the cost is probably not so much in the physical work to reinstate as it is in actually making sure that we have the evidence and the information we need to obtain the approvals. And so unless the community has some of that expertise, there's some stuff that we will need council to consider funding for that. But when it comes to actually the reinstatement, I'm sure there are very skilled people in the community who might be able to lend a hand, and we'd be open to that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The second question was just quickly, I'm aware that the expression of interest process for 69 McLaughlin Street has now closed, and I just wondered when that might be reported back to council and when there might be some announcement as to the outcome of that EOI process for the old kindergarten.
Yeah, so thanks again for your second question. So the process has been mapped out to try and make sure we can come to council for a consideration of that at the April meeting. We do know that the expression of interest period has just closed, which is great. Now officers will just review where we're at. We'll arrange a confidential briefing to councils, and we're aiming to bring that into April chamber.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think that concludes questions from the floor. Thank you, everybody, for your questions. We move on to petitions and joint letters, which we have nil tonight. Now I'd like to call declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest, please?
So thank you. I think it's officers' turn tonight, Mayor. I have a declaration of a conflict of interest that I need to record. It is a general conflict of interest with item 9.4 that relates to the potential discontinuance of an unused road reserve. My residence is within a few hundred metres of that unused road reserve, and so I would have a general interest in that matter.
Thank you. Mr Tenney?
Through you, Mayor, thank you. I also have a general conflict of interest with item 9.4. My residence is also close to the property 80A Hart Street, although in the other direction, it's still close enough.
Thank you. Thank you to both of you. Okay, now I'll move on to the confirmation of minutes, and I propose we move to confirm the minutes of the council meeting scheduled for 28th of February 2024, which was held across the 28th of February, 1st of March and 6th of March 2024. Before we move on, I'd like the CEO to comment, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, so before councillors consider the formal confirmation of the minutes, I just want to let the gallery know, just so that you have an understanding of the process. The 28th of March 2024 council meeting actually took place over 3 different dates, and so there's been some complexities around making sure those minutes all come together appropriately and show the proper record of that meeting. And we had circulated some draft minutes for councillors to review, and we did pick up a couple of things that needed correction and a couple of things that needed to be improved for clarity. So that was great feedback from the councillors. We have reviewed the various video conferences, etc. We have updated the document and circulated revised minutes to the councillors, and it is actually the revised minutes that we are going to ask council to consider confirming tonight. So just for your information, there's been a bit of work in the background. I want to thank all the officers, but in particular the support and patience of our councillors as we pulled this one together. It's just a bit more complex than the normal one. Thank you.
Thank you. So do I have a mover for the revised minutes? Councillor Hart. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Arnott. Is that to be opposed? Not to be opposed. I declare the minutes carried. Now we move on to officers' reports. Item 9.1, the Marengo Beacon reinstatement. The purpose of this report is to provide an update on the status of the reinstatement of the historic Marengo Beacon in response to a resolution at the 26th of April 2023 council meeting and seek an allocation of funds to enable the project to proceed. Councillors, before I ask for a motion, do any councillors wish to ask a question of officers? No questions? Councillors?
Before you move further, Mayor, can I just point out, make sure that councils are aware that officers have actually provided an updated recommendation. We have a revised recommendation. We recognised that there was some words missing when we transcribed the resolution of April 2023 meeting, which flowed from Councillor Costin's notice of motion. When we incorporated that resolution into this report, we missed a few of the introductory words and some at the very end. So we have updated our recommendation to make sure that that is noted and corrected. I just wanted to explain why there's a new recommendation.
So we have a revised recommendation. Councillor Costin?
Thank you, Mayor. Just flagging I'd like to move an alternate motion. Thank you.
Do any councillors have questions? No questions. Okay, Councillor Costin?
The option, we've looked at various options to progress this, and option 4 was to defer this matter until the next meeting. There's obviously a number of questions still to be answered, and we've heard questions here tonight. So we'll defer this until the April, I'm moving to defer this until the April meeting. Thank you.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Potter? Is it to be opposed? Councillor Costin?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to thank those in the gallery who asked questions tonight and any written questions in relation to this. Yes, there are various alternatives that we can look at and still need to look at, and various cost-saving measures that could be looked at also. So to give us time to do that rather than jump to a decision now, I'm proposing that we allow officers time to gather that information together so we can make a fully informed decision at our next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Potter.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I'm happy to second this motion of Councillor Costin's. Given some questions tonight and some other information that I think we need to explore, it makes sense. I think Moses were in support of installing the beacon, but with a price tag of 20k, it's expensive, and there's other information that come to light, and perhaps a opportunity to partner with the community to keep some of those costs down. I think we need to explore that.
Thank you. Councillor Arnott.
Thank you, Mayor White. Just to speak in support of this motion and to reassure the people here, Jane, John, you spoke before about the beacon. Thank you for your input. To reassure you that those points that you brought up have been a topic of discussion around council laws. We take those on board, but thank you for that because it's important to put those in there, and that's part of the reason why we think it's best to push this a little bit further out so we can get the right answer for this for you. So just there was no questions before, not because the questions haven't been asked or there hasn't been discussion. It's just we just want to keep this thing moving for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councillor wish to speak? No other councillor wishes to speak. Councillors, I will now call for a vote. All those in favour? All those against? Carried 7-0. Thank you. We now move on to item 9.2, project budget adjustments and cash reserve transfers, March 2024. The purpose of this report is to present the project budget adjustments and cash reserve transfers for council ratification and approval. These budgets are for 23-24 capital works and operational projects. Councillors, before I ask for a motion, do any councillors wish to ask a question of council officers? No questions of council officers. Councillors, the officers have provided a recommendation with the report for our consideration. Does any councillor wish to move a motion in relation to this matter? Councillor Arnott? Councillor, can you state which motion that you are moving, please?
Accepting the officer's recommendation, please.
Officer's recommendation. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Hart. Is it opposed? Councillor Arnott?
Thank you, Mayor White. Look, this is just another example of our officers looking to make sure that we've got everything transparent for our community to see what's happening and for the councillors to be aware of what's happening with this purchase. To reassure everyone that this is going to market appropriately, that we know that we're getting the right deal for this. It'll be a while before these trucks arrive, so our equipment will be continued to use what we've got now. And when the new arrives, the old one will be sold, so we'll get money back from that. But this makes sure that we've got everything in place for those and for all the other projects that are in process, so that we're periodically brought in front of us these things to make sure that programs can continue to proceed appropriately and that we are fully aware of the costs, and the community is also. Thank you.
Councillor Hart.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll just add that or really reinforce what Councillor Arnott said, in that I think this is a very transparent way of when there's funds remaining from a project that's completed or other projects that need more funds. It's a very transparent way both for councillors and the community to see which projects have got top-ups and where projects have come in under budget.
Any other councillor wish to speak? No, councillor wishes to speak. Councillors, I'll now call for a vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried 7-0. Thank you, councillors. We now move on to item 9.3, Quarter 2 Performance Report against 23-24 Annual Plan. The purpose of this report is to provide an update and progress made towards the Council's 23-24 Annual Plan for the period 1st of October to 31st of December 2023. Councillors, before I ask for a motion, does any councillor wish to ask a question? Councillor Finnegan?
Apologies, just had to switch on my microphone. My question is, looking at the figures contained within the agenda item for 9.3, my question is, we see a lot of mention of things that are in progress and what's completed. Do we expect everything that's in progress to be completed by the end of this financial year?
Who would like to take that question?
I'm happy to respond to that. Thank you, through the Chair. Thanks,
Senora.
Councillor Finnegan. Without me running an eye down every single individual one, I would make a comment that I think many things are well progressed and on track, and I don't think that there are many that I have concern about not materially achieving the objective by the end of the year. But there are a number of commitments and actions in the action plan that we know actually happen every year. We don't stop. It might be advocacy. We will continue to do that. It might be a partnership. We will continue to do that. So there are a number of actions in the plan that won't be complete because sometimes we just never stop doing that good work. Other things I think are well on track.
Councillor Costin?
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of questions on the table in relation to 1.16, which is the exploration of key worker housing on council-owned land in Nelson Street, Apollo Bay, which will be of interest to our gallery here tonight. We've lodged a grant application, and I'm wondering when we will hear the results of that grant application. And in the meantime, are we still pursuing our contaminated land assessment for that site?
So, through the Chair. Thanks, Councillor Costin. Happy to talk to that one. So we worked very hard with our partners to try and make sure our application to the Regional Partnerships and Precincts program which is a federal government funding program, got in at the earliest possible time and before their initial deadline. They do a couple of soft closes and assess after that. And we worked hard to make the 31st of October 23 deadline in the hope we would be one of the early celebrators, I guess. And there was an indication that the first announcements would roll very early in 2024. However, at this time, there has been no announcements to my knowledge. We haven't heard back. We haven't had any questions about our application, so we are very much in a holding pattern. In relation to progressing the understanding of what needs to happen at Nelson Street site to prepare for a change of use there to residential, Council had made a commitment to fund to allocate $120,000 to help us do that groundwork. We were trying to maximise how much we could get through some predominantly state government grants. Those programs haven't flowed. We need to come back to Council and just affirm that they're comfortable for us to actually then not leverage the $120,000 but commit that to the work. But we've got a project scoped out and ready to commence as long as Council's happy to do that. If we do that, we lose the opportunity to leverage it, and that's why we just want to come back.
Thank you. Councillor Finnegan, did you have a follow-up question? Sorry. No? Okay. Councillor Costin, follow-up question.
Thank you, Mayor. If we move further down the table to 1.51, which was support business growth through population attraction and retention, we have a comment there that this year we're not actively promoting population growth because it's constrained by accommodation access, which is fair enough. But we also had indicators on targeting working age people, younger families, and we're looking for 1.5% growth, and we're trying to reduce the seasonality of business employee needs. I'm just wondering what population growth has been achieved and how we are working towards those other targets of young families and reduced seasonality. Thank you.
That one's for me. Just one moment.
I'm happy for that to be taken on notice.
Taken on notice?
Okay. Thank you, Councillor.
Thanks, Councillor Costin. We'll take that one on notice. Any other questions in relation to this item? Councillors, Councillor Arnott?
Yeah, I just wondered if what strategies the council thinks appropriate for the long term in order to assist our businesses with the accommodation issue within the Shire.
Thanks, Councillor Arnott. I'm happy to make some comments on that one through the chair. So we know that we are fortunate to have some fantastic employers in our municipality, in our region, which is great. We know that many of them want to grow their businesses, and to do that they need workforce. Our way of supporting those businesses within Council's remit is very much to try and make sure that we're doing our work at the very front end of creating that housing and accommodation supply chain. And for us at the very front end, you know, we have an important role in strategic land use planning to make sure that we are looking at the demand that we see and making sure we're helping to generate that supply. So very much that's a strategic planning responsibility for Council, and I think that we've seen some real uplift in that in the last year or two, and we're starting to see some momentum. So that's the first and I think most strategic way that we are assisting. That's not the same across the whole of the municipality. So areas like Apollo Bay, we know that there's more to dealing with this issue than just land supply itself. It's not just about rezoning and subdividing land. It's about making sure that we can find ways to generate more diverse accommodation, maybe recreate how some of the existing accommodation might be able to be freed up for population as opposed for intermittent use. So it's a more complex matter here, and we do a lot of that through advocacy around policy, advocacy to other levels of government that may be investing, such as through the big housing bill, and making sure that they've got to rely on Apollo Bay and the rest of the Colac Otway community, and that we hope we attract some diverse housing and accommodation through that advocacy.
Thank you. Councillor Potter.
Thanks, Mayor. Just on that vein, and it might be a bit difficult off the cuff, but I'm just wondering in relation to ballpark figure of residential blocks that might come online over the next 12 months, taking into account Bruce Street, Hillview, Bakerland, and the Bongers proposal, which has been on our books for a little while. They are coming soon. I'm just wondering if it's possible to get a ballpark figure just for the community.
Mr McNeil, you look like you're really keen to answer this one.
It's very difficult, Councillor, through you, Mayor, to answer that with any detail. I'll nominate a figure and inevitably found to be inaccurate. As the CEO's indicated, there has been a number of quite significant strategic planning initiatives addressed in the last couple of years, which resulted in 2 rezonings just in the last 12 months at Eliminate. Both of those could cater for up to 500 houses each. So we're currently working with the developers of those lands to get in place the various planning, detailed planning documents for subdivision stage. But I'd expect that within the next 12 months we'll see first stages of perhaps both those developments starting to unfold. Certainly the Bruce Street subdivision, construction started on that subdivision now, and that's 55 lots. And there's a number of other subdivisions which are at various stages. But Council's also looking at coordinating. Over the last couple of years, we've been working with a number of landowners at Colac West that's another 400 or 500 lots across different land ownerships, which we're seeking to finalise a development plan, and then that can be subdivided in parts. So whilst I can't give you an exact figure, Councillor, there's certainly quite a lot of positive activity around land that should be released for subdivision or available to be released in the next 12 months.
Thanks, Mr McNeil.
Thank you, Mr McNeil. Councillor Finnegan.
Thank you, Mayor. In line with the state government's announcements around second dwellings on properties that already have a legally built home, I guess in relation to sort of housing for workers and the like, have we seen an uptick in relation to applications through council for building permits or anything for second dwellings on properties at this stage?
Through you, Mayor, I'm not aware of any particular trends in relation to that, but I'm certainly happy to take the question on notice and we can investigate that further, particularly around building permits that we might have seen copies of, because council doesn't issue building permits itself, but we certainly do process and record the permits issued by private building surveyors, so we can look into that.
Thank you. Any other questions in relation to this item, performance report? No other questions? Councillors, the officers have provided a recommendation with the report for our consideration. Does any councillor wish to move a motion in relation to the matter? Councillor Arnott, do I have a seconder? Councillor Potter.
So I'm moving the officer's recommendation, yes.
Thank you. You're moving the officer's recommendation?
Yes,
thank you,
Mayor.
Councillor Arnott. Seconded, Councillor Potter. Is it to be opposed? Councillor Arnott.
Thank you, Mayor White. Look, this has already had some commentary, so I won't talk much about this. It's great to see that we have these strategic plans in place and that we have a way of monitoring them to see that we've got them to moving forward. As our CEO said, some of these will be completed now or in this next 12 months. Others will just be continuing on, and some of them are just more than 1 year, so you can't say they're being completed this year. Because you can't have everything just done in 1 year. So this is a great demonstration, I guess, and again, to try to demonstrate to the community what we're doing on your behalf. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Arnott. Councillor Potter.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Yes, councillors, this is a report for noting really, but I encourage members of the community to have a look at it. It does highlight the strategic direction council set and the direction we're going in, and the myriad of things that councils and the organisation have to consider and have to work towards.
Any other councillor wish to speak? Thank you. Councillors, the officers, I will now call for a vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried 7-0. Thank you. Now we move on to item 9.4, proposed discontinuance of Road Reserve 80A Hart Street, council land. The purpose of this report is to enable council to consider a discontinuance of part of an unused road reserve adjacent to 80A Hart Street and seek the community views on this matter.
Just before you move any further on this item,
There you go.
thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to restate that I have a general conflict of interest in this item. As I explained, the unused road is in near proximity to my own residence, and just for the gallery's information, as an officer, whilst I make that declaration, I don't need to leave the room as such because I'm not in a decision-making role today. So if you wonder why I get to stay, because it's slightly different. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr Tenney?
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, Mayor. Again, I'd like to reinstate, I also have a general conflict of interest in relation to the property at 80A Hart Street. My residence is also in the proximity of that property.
Thank you. Councillors, do I have any questions of officers? Councillor Arnott.
Thank you, Mayor White. If we were to consider this proposal in a positive sense, and we're looking at, my understanding is to amalgamate the two blocks together, when we draw up the final boundaries, will we consider that within the context of the strategic planning for that area and the laneways and such?
Mr McNeil?
Through you, Mayor, what this resolution would call for, as it's presented, would be for if the discontinuance of the road is supported, in other words, there's no submissions, then officers would proceed to consolidate the land with the existing land that council owns. We're aware of the access that the laneway at the rear provides. We would obviously going forward, we would consider strategically this land in relation to the area around it in future decisions.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Finnegan.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just wondering if noting that we're looking to, I guess, discontinue this road reserve and hopefully consolidate it within the title for 80A Hart Street. I was just wondering if we had a ballpark, at the moment, any ballpark valuation or anything on what the total site would be?
Mr McNeil.
Through you, Mayor, I'm not aware that we have any valuation for the land currently. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillors, the officers have provided a recommendation with the report for our consideration. Does any councillor wish to move a motion in relation to the matter? Councillor Finnegan, which motion do you propose to move? The officer recommendation. Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Arnott. Councillor Finnegan?
Not much to say about this one. Obviously, we're sort of seeking to consolidate the road reserve into the property title, and this motion will help us do that by way of seeking submissions. So the decision will be made at a future council meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Arnott.
Thank you, Mayor White. I took the liberty of going for a drive down the lanes about this proposal, and where there's this road closure, there's just grass. There's no road there now. It's never been used as a road, so it makes sense to not consider it as a road for the future. It does make a rather narrow piece of land now something more substantive when it's joined together, so it'll have some economic value where neither of them have any real economic value at the moment. So I think this just makes common sense for us to deal with in an appropriate manner. Thank you.
Thank you. Does any other councillor wish to speak? No. Councillors, I will now call for a vote. All those in favour? All those against? Carried 7-0. Thank you. Moving on to item 9.5, award of contract 2410 Barham River Road landslip rehabilitation, 6 sites. The purpose of this report is to consider the award of contract 2410 for the rehabilitation of the landslips arising from storm damage in 2021. Councillors, before I ask for a motion, do I have any questions for officers? No questions for officers. Councillor Finnegan.
Sorry, I was just wondering, I guess the question just asked, and I guess to tease out for sort of the public's knowledge, this amount How would we be seeking to fund this? Would this be from any contributions from federal or state government, or would it be out of the council's own pocket?
There you go. Thanks.
Mayor, I'm happy to respond to that. Knowing that my general managers could, I want to take the opportunity because I can comment on the revised officer recommendation. So the landslip work, we have about 43 sites where we need to do landslip rectification work as a result of the September-October 2021 and 2022 storm events. And we've been successful in getting federal funding to help do that work, to fundamentally fund that work. It comes at very little cost to council. And so this will be funded through the NDRA funding, which is National Disaster Resilience Agency funding.
Thank you. And did you want to comment any further on the revised
and
recommendation?
Thank you. While I have the mic, it just gives me an opportunity to let councillors in the gallery know that officers had just reviewed the wording of point 5 for this contract award recommendation and just felt that we could just tweak it, very, very small addition of a will and an and here and there, just to make sure that it's clear what the process will be. So the process for the gallery's information is that if council resolve to award the contract and authorise me to exercise that, then as soon as we have issued the letter of award to the successful contractor, we will also at the same time be telling the unsuccessful tenderers. And then once that letter of acceptance has been issued, we upload the successful contractor's name and the contract value to our website so that there's transparency about the decision, which at the moment isn't available because out of courtesy to the unsuccessful tenderers, we want to make sure we do that first. That point 5 wording, we would see that be consistently applied to the following items that relate to contract awards.
Thank you. Is there any further questions? No further questions? Councillors, the officers have provided a recommendation with the report for our consideration. Does any councillor wish to move a motion in relation to this matter? Councillor Costin. Is it to be seconded? Thanks, Councillor Potter. Councillor, will you state the motion that you're moving?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move the motion which is up on the screen. Thank you. With the small amendment.
Thank you. And you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Just that I'm very pleased to see this come before council. It's been a long time coming, and there are a number of ratepayers and residents who live up this road, business people, and it's a school bus route, so there are kids, families, parents who've been concerned at the carriage of that school bus down past these slips that have been there for some time now. We did have a lot of slips over that time, so each of these slips has to take their turn to be repaired. So I can understand why it has taken some time, but to complete this work is a great thing to see proceeding. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Potter?
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I'd just like to echo the words of Councillor Costin. I think councillors have been contacted from time to time over the last 2 or 3 years with queries around this work and when it might start. Now there's a clear direction that if this contract is awarded, that work will commence, and that's a good thing for the residents and users of the road.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Thank you. Councillors, I will now call for a vote. All those in favour? All those against? Carried 7-0. Moving on to item 9.6, award of contract 2413 Wild Dog Road landslip rehabilitation 9 sites. The purpose of this report is to consider the award of contract 2413 for the rehabilitation of 9 landslips in Wild Dog Road, Apollo Bay, arising from 2021 storm damage. Before I ask for a motion, do any councillors wish to ask questions in relation to this item? No questions? Councillors, the officers have provided a recommendation with the report for our consideration. Does any councillor wish to move a motion? Councillor Arnott. Councillor Costin seconded. Councillor Arnott, can you state the motion you wish to move, please?
Thank you, Mayor White. Moving the motion as up on the screen there, which includes the slightly amended wording in section 5. as per the previous motion.
Thanks, Councillor Arnott. Wish to speak further?
Thank you, Mayor White. Look, I guess this is the same as the previous one. Just great to see these contracts now coming to fruition, get this stuff happening on the ground. I really thank the people for being patient till we get this together. It's been a bit of a process, I understand that. And Wild Dog Road is one of those iconic roads of this area. It'll be great to see it fixed up again. This will be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Costin.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, the comments I made in relation to the Barham River Road equally will apply here, and I expect at least one member of our gallery tonight will be pleased to see this proceeding quickly. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Costin. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillors, I'll now call for a vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried 7-0. Thank you. Now we move to item 9.7, the award of contract 2415 Wild Dog Road landslip rehabilitation 7 sites. The purpose of this report is to consider the award of contract 2415 for the rehabilitation of 7 landslips along Wild Dog Road arising from the 2021 storm damage. Councillors, before I ask for a motion, any questions on this one? Councillor Costin.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess the obvious question here is why are there 2 separate contracts for these total of 16 sites?
Thank you, Councillor Costin. Mr McNeill, thank you.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. Thanks for the question, Councillor. In assessing the types of works that were to occur to address these different landslips, it was considered appropriate to bundle the works up into 2 different groups and put those out to market and test the market based on the type of work being done.
And what are the 2 different types of work?
There's retaining wall, gabion wall type treatments, and then there's other types of treatments, battering and so on.
Thank you. Any other questions? No other questions. Councillors, the officers have provided a recommendation with the report for our consideration. Does any councillor wish to move a motion in relation to this matter? Councillor Costin, to be seconded. Councillor Potter. Councillor Costin, can you state the motion you wish to move?
I'll move the motion which is up on the screen, which has a small amendment in dot point 5. Thank you. I don't think I need to say anything further on this one.
Thanks, Councillor Costin. Councillor Potter?
I don't wish to speak either. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Any other councillor wish to speak? No other councillor wishes to speak. Okay, thank you, councillors. I'll now call for a vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried 7-0. Thank you, councillors. We now move to item 9.8, contract 2416, Forest Street Pavement Rehabilitation, Wallace Street to Calanda Street, Colac. The purpose of this report is to consider the award of contract 2416 for Forest Street Pavement Rehabilitation. Councillors, before I ask for a motion, do any councillors have a question of officers? No questions of officers. Councillors, the officers have provided a recommendation with the report for our consideration. Does any councillor wish to move a motion in relation to this matter? Councillor Arnott. Seconded, Councillor Hanson. Councillor Arnott, state the motion you wish to move.
Thank you, Mayor White. Look, there's the amended motion there. I guess it's number 5 has been the slightly word change, is same as the others. Will be listed, yes. Thank you. So I'm moving that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Arnott. Councillor Hanson? Any other councillor wish to speak?
Well, we just confirmed the motion, so we haven't...
Oh, sorry, you wish to speak further to the motion. Sorry, Councillor Arnott.
Thank you, Mayor White. Just quickly, yeah, this is a job that needs to be done. If anyone travels Forest Street from time to time, which I do, I understand the issue about roads not being good. This one needs fixing. It's a key to an industrial area of Colac. It's an important link for our industry and for our commerce, and to the getting out of Colac from that, I feel like, east side of town. So I think it's important that this road be fixed, and commend this to council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Arnott. Councillor Hanson? Any other councillor wish to speak? Councillors, I'll now call for a vote. All those in favour? All those against? Carried 7-0. Thank you. It's dry work. Okay, now we'll move on to item 9.9, Contract 2402, Colac Aerodrome Lighting Works. The purpose of this report is to consider the award of Contract 2402 for Colac Aerodrome Lighting Works. Councillors, before I ask for a motion, do councillors have any questions of officers? No questions of officers? Councillors, the officers have provided a recommendation with this report for our consideration. Does any councillor wish to move a motion in relation to this matter? Councillor Arnott? Councillor Arnott, which motion do you propose to move?
There is a motion up on the screen here which seems again to have a slight wording change in item 5.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Potter. Councillor Arnott, you wish to speak?
Thank you, Mayor White. Look, this has just been a long time coming, this lighting upgrade. I believe that Council was able to achieve the additional funding grant required to get the right outcome for the aerodrome, which is great. And this will see our aerodrome continue to be useful to the people who use it now, but it also expand its operations and its safety. So this is an important part, again, of our growth of commerce of the Shire and area. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Potter?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. We got some government assistance to make these improvements, so we're grateful for that. And Council committing some of their own funds. I know Councillor Finnegan had an interest in this and has had some conversation with members of the Aero Club and Mr Callahan. I'm pleased to see this in front of us, and this will improve the safety and the usage of the airfield.
Thanks, Councillor Potter. Councillor Finnegan?
Yeah, I guess I'm in on this one. Glad to see that this is finally coming to us for a decision, and really glad to see that these much-needed upgrades are going to be made to the aerodrome, because the reality is that without these upgrades and I guess maintenance and like, it's going to be very hard for people who land planes or anything of that ilk. So, here.
Thank you, Councillor Finnegan. Any other councillor wish to speak? Thank you. Councillors, I'll now call for a vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried 7-0. Thank you. We now move on to item 9.10, Contract 2409, Supply and Delivery of 2 9-metre trucks. The purpose of this report is to award Contract 2409 for the supply and delivery of 2 9-metre trucks for the use of council services and operations activity to replace ageing plant. Councillors, before I ask for a motion, do councillors have any questions of officers? Councillor Hanson?
Yeah, I just wanted to, officers, to just confirm that the 2 trucks we're talking about in this tender are the same 2 trucks that were in the earlier item, where we've actually allocated further finance towards the purchase of these trucks.
Thank you. Mr McNeill?
Yeah, through you, Mayor. Thanks, Councillor. Yes, the earlier report considered by Council where there was project adjustments made is to reflect the cost of this contract being awarded for the 2 trucks and to allocate the additional funds to enable that to occur from what was available in the budget.
Thank you, Mr McNeill. Councillor Costin?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm wondering what the expected trading value is of the 2 trucks that are being replaced. Do we have an estimate of trade-in value?
Through you, Mayor, the trade-in value does depend on the age of the vehicles, and you know, if Council was to hold on to vehicles a year longer than what they would otherwise, that can affect the value. Obviously, Council needs to wait for the delivery of these 2 trucks before it can sell the ones that it has presently. So it's a bit hard to precisely give you an idea as to the sale price, but it might be somewhere in the region of a quarter of the price that we paid for them originally.
Thank you. Follow-up question, Councillor Costin.
Thank you. And why don't, when we contract for the new trucks, why don't we, as part of the contract, ask for a trade-in price for the old trucks at that time? Why will we have 2 different processes?
I'm happy to respond to that one. It's probably something I'm more familiar with than Mr McNeil, perhaps. So there are some markets, particularly with light fleet, where trade-in as you are purchasing a replacement vehicle is very common. With trucks, most of the suppliers of trucks, they really focus on supply of new trucks. And historically, local government in particular has found that you'll get a better return if you sell the assets at an auction place where people go and look for second-hand trucks. That's less common if you sell them to suppliers of new trucks. So we find that we tend to wait until there's a couple of items of heavy plant. We'd go to the auction house and we would sell them through that way. It's very transparent, which we like, but we do find generally across my experience across Victorian councils, you get a better return. I am hoping that given the price of new trucks, that the price of second-hand trucks also goes up and we get a really great return.
Thank you, CEO. Councillor Finnegan.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Just to tease out the point, and obviously considering how much we voted to allocate in the earlier item, what was the overall increase in cost on these trucks?
CEO? Okay.
So councillors have access to a confidential document of supporting information that the gallery don't. Originally there was a budget allocation that was set in 22-23, so it was set actually in early 22 as we developed that budget, and it's taken a while to get these out to market. At that time the allocation put aside was $300,000 per truck.
And so now the allocation's gone up by about...
Yeah, I have to go back to the other table. Yep, so there's now an additional allocation of $70,000 per truck. And then, as I said, hopefully we get a good return on the asset sales, but we won't be able to do that until the new trucks arrive, and then we can put the old ones to auction. So we need to fully fund up front to buy them. That's the difference between doing a trade-in, I guess.
Yes, thank you. Just as a follow-up.
Follow-up question, Councillor Finnegan.
Thank you. Is there a particular reason as to why we waited so long before going out to market after funding this in the 22-23 budget?
I'm not aware of a specific reason. I'd have to take that on notice.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Hart, then Councillor Arnott.
Thanks, Mayor. Just wondering when we're expecting the delivery, when presumably around that time is when you'll work out what the trade-in or what the old trucks can be sold for.
Through you, Mayor, we expect that it could be up to around 12 months for the delivery of the trucks. It's certainly our experience at the moment that given the market, it's a significant lead-in time from the date of signing contracts to receiving them plant.
Thank you, Mr McNeil. Councillor Arnott.
Thank you, Mayor Watt. One of my questions answered by Councillor Hart's question. The other one was when we went to tender, we used the Municipal Association of Victoria contract panels to get this? Does that provide us an advantage, you feel?
Mr McNeil.
Through you, Mayor, that certainly has been Council's choice in terms of being a preferred method to seek prices for this type of plan. Council believes it's providing best value to it and in preference over other market methods.
Thank you.
So that methodology provides us the opportunity to potentially bulk buy with other councils through the MAV, is that correct?
That's my understanding, Councillor. By going through that mechanism, it provides better value to council through accessing that type of arrangement, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Finnegan.
Thank you. Considering the original allocation was in the realm of roughly $300,000 per truck, the question I have is, was that in line with sort of what we were expecting to pay at the time in the 22-23 budget?
So through the chair, yes, we would have put forward in the 22-23 budget what we would expect would be needed, and that would have been based probably on truck purchases from 2019, 2021. For all vehicles, small and large, there's been a significant change in the market in the last 3 years, and we are going to have to review what that means for future purchases and what that might mean for the modelling of our plant replacement reserve.
One last follow-up question.
Thank you. And as part of the process, had we considered going with sort of any alternative brands or anything rather than perhaps what was spec to try and save money or anything of that ilk, rather than going for an increase in the budget?
Sorry, I'm not sure I understand the question. Are you able to repeat that for me, please?
Yeah, of course. I guess had we, I'll try and clear it up a bit. Had we, noting that it was looking like we were going to need extra funding to pull this off, did we go back and perhaps look at other options for trucks that would fill our need rather than a specific type that we may have landed on or anything of that ilk?
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. So we will have put out a specification for suppliers on the MAV panel to respond to. We wouldn't have asked for a specific make of truck. We would have set the specification, and that will include not just capacity, fuel servicing, but it'll have safety issues, and then our outdoor teams actually have a really strong input to make sure that it's going to serve their needs. And then there is a multi-criteria assessment of which, yes, financial price is one, but there are a number of other things in the specification that we factor in. So when it comes to the make, we don't specify necessarily we only want to buy a whatever brand, but it needs to make sure that whatever that is, we can not just meet the specification, make sure we can service and look after it that well, get parts, all of that stuff.
Thank you. Councillor Hart.
Thanks, Mayor. Given some of the questions that have been asked, I wonder if we would be allowed to disclose the positions of the people who are involved in assessing the tender. It's in the confidential report. I'm not suggesting we disclose the names, but it might give some comfort of the direct involvement of people who are who obviously have a day-to-day involvement with these sorts of machinery.
Yeah, I'm certainly comfortable to talk about the nature of the roles of the people that are on the panel. I probably wouldn't give their specific job titles, just because I think that it would be not helpful. But let me just find that report again.
It's on page 337 of the 386-page attachment.
Thanks. Sorry.
I'm just asking in general.
Yeah, it's just a general idea of who's on the panel and what their experience and qualifications are to make those decisions.
Yeah, they do. So thanks. The people on the panel, it's a 3-person panel, and that includes a senior officer that has oversight of our infrastructure management, but also our plant and fleet, including the maintenance of those things. So very focused on the performance to do the job and how we look after that plant. There is a more hands-on role there. One of our team leaders who would know exactly what it needs to do on the ground in the field, and would look for certain features, I'm sure, and including, as I say, safety, efficiency, all of those things, but confidence that they can be well serviced and looked after. And then the other person is a senior officer with extensive experience in procurement and contract management. And yes, there is, when they look at the preferred trucks, there is a test drive general. I'm just looking to see whether that's captured in the report. Yeah. And so the people who actually need to use the trucks also get to get hands on the vehicle before we commit to it, which I think is really important because, reading about the specs in the book, very different to having someone who uses the truck every day.
Thank you. That's some good information. Any further questions? No further questions. Councillors, the officers have provided a recommendation with the report for our consideration. Does any councillor wish to move a motion in relation to this matter? Councillor Arnott, can you state the motion you wish to move?
There's a motion up on the screen here, I believe, which has got slightly different wording in 4. Is that correct? Yes.
Is it to be seconded? Councillor Costin, is it to be opposed? Councillor Arnott.
Thank you, Mayor White. This type of equipment is just the basic essentials for this shire. If you want a road built or you want something cleaned up, you want things transported, these trucks are needed for that. Every day our drivers and service personnel workers get in these machinery and they use them, and they use them effectively so that we get really good payback from that. And so these are just something we must do. This is not an optional thing. The process that we've been through, and that was part of the questions, so that everyone can get a flesh out of what the process is and understanding what's happened, because it's important that we understand that. So I thank all the councillors for those questions. And whilst we're looking for certainly not to pay any more than we want to pay or any more than we need to, but you also, same as anyone else, you buy a vehicle, you buy an asset, you want value for money, not just the cheapest. And so that's what we'll be looking for, and that's where the big input from those who use these assets comes in, the people in the yard, the drivers, the actual people on the ground. So I think the process that the council goes through is quite good, and to get to this final recommendation, and I certainly support it.
Thanks, Councillor Arnott. Councillor Costin? Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Finnegan.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to begrudgingly support this item on the basis that obviously this is plant and equipment that we do need. However, I do feel that the time that's probably elapsed since the original budget was handed down for 22-23 and the time it's taken for this to come to us now has probably accounted for some of the close to 23.5% increase of the original budget price. It is equipment that we do need, and I listen to other councillors and agree that, without these trucks we don't get roads or anything built. We don't have the maintenance undertaking that we need, but I do think that perhaps in future, if we are allocating money in a budget, we should generally try and get that equipment purchased within that year or as soon as possible to the money being allocated, so we can perhaps try and lessen the impact of the monster of inflation or anything like that, or the impact of price rises as they occur.
Thank you, Councillor Finnegan. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillors, I'll now call for a vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried 7-0. Now we move on to item 9.11. Excuse me, sorry. Community Asset Committee's new member, Apollo Bay Senior Citizens Centre. The purpose of this report is to appoint a new committee member to the Apollo Bay Senior Citizens Community Asset Committee. Councillors, before I ask for a motion, do councillors have any questions of officers? No questions of officers. Councillors, the officers have provided a recommendation with the report for our consideration. Does any councillor wish to move a motion in relation to the matter? Councillor Costin, can you state the motion you wish to move? Thank you. Have I got a seconder for that motion? Councillor Potter. Councillor Costin.
Thank you, Mayor. It's quite a pleasure to move this motion to appoint Carlin to this position. Carlin's also coordinator of Murra Warn, which is our Apollo Bay Community Neighbourhood House, sorry. She's quite a talented artist and involved with Arts Inc. and she's a young mum, albeit very time-poor young mum, so I'd like to thank Carlin for putting her hand up to take on this role. This brings the total number of volunteers for this community asset committee to only 3, and I understand there are moves afoot to increase that number, but it's a lot of work for 3 volunteers. And we, Council, should recognise and acknowledge the very considerable time and effort of those who put in by these volunteers in running these public halls for Council. This hall is also known locally as the Apollo Bay Community Hall, and it would be appropriate to formally recognise a change of name at some future time, at some future Council meeting. Thank you.
Councillor Potter.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I'm happy to support this. Councillor Costin has verbalised some of the things I was going to say, and I just wanted to touch again on the difficulties the community has in attracting volunteers and encourage people to put in an effort to assist their community, as the people in this committee does. And I know the local fire brigade has been advertising heavily to try and get some volunteers, which is a crucial service to this area. And again, just encourage people to think about whether they can assist in some of these community groups.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Thanks, councillors. I'll now call for a vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried 7-0. Thank you. We now move on to item 9.12, appointment of community representatives for the Ondit Quarry Consultative Committee. The purpose of this report is to appoint community representatives for the Ondit Quarry Consultative Committee. Councillors, before I ask for a motion, does anyone have questions of officers? No questions? Councillors, the officers have provided a recommendation with the report for our consideration. Does any councillor wish to move the motion in relation to the matter? Councillor Arnott, can you state the motion you wish to move?
Thank you, Mayor White. I would like to move the motion as it appears on the screen. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it to be seconded? Councillor Potter. Councillor Arnott.
Thank you, Mayor White. The Ondit Consultative Committee, the Quarry Committee, is just another one of the committees that Council supports for the operation of these types of assets. And it's important that we have community representation on these committees, because these people generally are people who reside or have businesses or farms close to the operations of these sorts of businesses like quarries. So I guess it's really important for people to understand the quality of work the quarry owners do and the quality of the work that the representatives do. They actually work together very, very well in my experience, and because I've been had the privilege of being chair of these meetings in the last couple of meetings as a council representative. So it's great to see people working proactively to get together, have a good outcome. Discussions can be robust, but in the end we get a really good outcome where we have a shared agreement of what needs to be done to make sure things happen in a safe manner. Because then we want roads. We've just approved Great Eppa Road rebuilds. We need the quarry to provide the material. We want the farmers to operate in a safe way. They need access to water and that around them, so they need to feed that back into the quarry's operations. We have 2 positions that are coming vacant on the committee, where long-standing members have asked to stand down and other people to step forward. We have 6 nominees who have put their names up, so we have to select them appropriate. And so within the motion there, there's no names because that would be inappropriate this time until such time as we talk to those people and get their approval for acceptance. So in that context, I really do thank the 6 people for putting their names forward and being prepared to be a proactive and positive input to the process. Thank you.
Councillor Potter.
Thanks, Mayor. I was only going to, I would only repeat what Councillor Arnott said, so I won't say anything.
Thank you. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Hart.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Just draw attention to point 6, which isn't currently showed on the screen. I think it's very important to note that we're thanking the people who have served for many years on this committee and have created the vacancies. I appreciate that the focus was on the changes to the resolution, but I think it's a very important part of this process.
Great, that's a good point, Councillor Hart. Any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Finnegan, did you wish to speak? Oh, thank you. No other councillors. Councillors, I'll now... Sorry, Councillor Arnott.
I would just like to reaffirm Councillor Hart's comments. I think that was very important for him to say, and to thank those long-serving members that their contribution has been extraordinary. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, I'll now call for a vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried 7-0. Thank you, councillors. Councillors, we now move on to item 9.13, proposed renaming of the Irrawillipy Public Hall and Recreation Reserve Community Asset Committee. The purpose of this report is to seek Council's endorsement to change the Irrawillipy Hall and Recreation Reserve Community Asset Committee name to the Irrawillipy Sports and Entertainment Complex Community Asset Committee. Councillors, before I ask for a motion, do I have any questions for officers? No questions for officers. Councillors, the officers have provided a recommendation with the report for our consideration. Does any councillor wish to move a motion in relation to this matter? Councillor Arnott, Councillor Arnott, state the motion you wish to move?
My understanding is the motion on the screen is the same as what's in the agenda. Is that correct?
That's correct. Thank
Yes,
you. Do I have a
motion. Thank you.
seconder? Councillor Hanson. Councillor Arnott.
I'll admit to not knowing too much about this, but my understanding is this is to answer the needs of the community or the request of the community, the people who actually control the asset and want to do make it recognised for what it's really used for. So I see no reason why not to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hanson.
Exactly the same, that this is a request from that committee, and I'll be supporting that.
Thank you. Any other councillor wish to speak? No other councillor wishes to speak? Councillors, I will now call for a vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried 7-0. Thank you, councillors. Moving on to item 9.14, Audit and Risk Committee unconfirmed minutes, 14th of March 2024. The purpose of this report is to provide for information the Colac Otway Shire Audit and Risk Committee unconfirmed minutes dated 14th of March 2024. Councillors, before I call for a motion, do any councillors have any questions? Councillor Hart.
Thanks, Mayor. Just in the context of the reports to the Audit Committee, does Council have any information on the vested benefits index for the defined benefit super scheme? You might recall that if that goes, I think it's below 97%, that there's a extra cost to the council. So do we have any information? What's the latest available information on that scheme, please?
Thank you, Councillor Hart. Mr Tenney?
Through you, Mayor, thanks for the question, Councillor Hart. We haven't got that information on hand at the moment, and we will be seeking to understand that as we move through our budgeting process as well.
Thank you. Any other questions, Councillor Arnott?
Thank you, Mayor White. If I may just add to the answer for Councillor Hart. It's a valid question because it has been raised at the committee and again at the most recent committee meeting, so thank you for that. It is something that the committee is aware of to keep in front of us, and Andrew has again reiterated that we continue to be in contact with the super fund to try to get any further updates, but they tend to be circumspect until they want to make a decision.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillors, the officers have provided a recommendation with the report for our consideration. Does any councillor wish to move a motion in relation to the matter? Councillor Arnott, can you state the
I
motion?
move the motion that of the officer's recommendation, which is on the board there, I believe. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Finnegan? Is it to be opposed? Councillor Arnott.
Thank you, Mayor White. I felt I should move this, given that I'm on the committee along with yourself, and we have regular meetings. And I'd like to just reiterate again that Councillor Hart was a long-time member of this committee, so I'm now just starting to learn some of the things that he has been dealing with for a long time, and Councillor Hanson before me. So thank you for those. The Risk and Audit Committee is very, very important for the operations of the organisation, and this minutes helps to keep the councillors themselves informed of what's going on, and the public, of course. These minutes have been passed all the committee members and the independent members who are on the Audit and Risk Committee, and adjustments made before they've come here to this council for ratification, so we know they're correct. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Arnott. Councillor Finnegan? Thank you. Any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Hart?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I appreciate hearing that the Audit Committee are keeping an eye on that VBI, but the Vested Benefits Index, sorry, for the superannuation fund. But I think that we as a council might get to the stage where we need to be following this up, whether it's with the MAV or what have you, because I think that Vested Benefits Index figure, which is the figure that they use to decide whether to hit ratepayers with a call, has been outstanding for more than one quarters.
Councillor Hart, any other councillor wish to speak? Councillors, I'll now call for a vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried 7-0. We move on to item 9.15, the revocation of authorised officers under the Planning and Environment Act 1987. The purpose of this report is to revoke the instrument of appointment and authorisation to Alex Broomfield, as he has changed position within council and the new role does not require the instrument of appointment and authorisation. Councillors, before I ask for a motion, does any councillor have a question of officers? No questions of officers. Councillors, we have a motion before us. Does any councillor wish to move a motion? Councillor Finnegan, can you state the motion you wish to move?
Yes, I wish to move the officer recommendation, which is shown on the screen currently.
Thanks, Councillor Finnegan. Is it to be seconded? Councillor Hart. Councillor Finnegan?
Thank you. Nothing really much to say about this, other than it's just sort of standard council housekeeping, I guess. When people leave the organisation or change positions and no longer need these delegations, we remove them because, you know, you don't want these things outstanding for too long.
Tidying
People
up.
having power they don't need.
Thank you, Councillor Finnegan. Councillor Hart?
Yes, Mayor, there's an instrument of delegation that sets out what various council employees do in their roles, and there's a formal process to appoint them to that or delegate that to them when they're appointed, and in this case the person concerned has changed roles, so it's just an appropriate thing that we take that delegation for this role that they no longer do off them. It's just a formal process that reflects those instrument of delegations.
Thank you, Councillor Hart. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillors, I'll now call for a vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried 7-0. Thank you. Move on to item 9.16, report of informal meeting of councillors. The purpose of this report is to report the informal meeting of councillors, and please note the purpose of this item is to report those meetings and does not require a council decision. Thank you, councillors. Now we move on to item 10.1, notice of motion, Apollo Bay Foreshore bushfire place of last resort. Councillor Costin, would you like to speak, make a comment?
Thank you, Mayor. If I could just make a short statement in relation to this notice of motion. Firstly, thank the council officers for providing the information in relation to the progress and timing of the updating of our municipal emergency management plan. This still leaves some uncertainty around the progress and timing of the Apollo Bay bushfire place of last resort, safe and neighbourhood place. And I've had some recent discussions with Gore Kappa and others, and there's a bit of emerging information coming out about the dune vegetation that forced the decommission of this site. So considering this and acknowledging there is a community push also to provide accommodation for those who take the CFA advice to leave early, I propose not to proceed with this notice of motion at this time, and we'll probably look to resubmit a revised notice of motion at the next council meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Costin. There are no items of urgent business. Councillors, are there any items of urgent business? No items of urgent business. So now we moving to a closed session. The remaining items for the consideration of council are to be heard in closed session. Councillors, we have a recommendation before us. Pursuant to the provisions of Section 66 of the Local Government Act 2020, the meeting be closed to the public and the council move into a closed session in order to deal with the following: minutes of the closed session meeting, minutes held on the 13th of December 2023 and 28th of February 2024 under the Local Government Act 2020, Section 3(1)(h), on the basis that this matter deals with confidential meeting information, being records of meetings closed to the public under the section internal audit contract under the Local Government Act 2020, Section 3(1)(h), on the basis that this matter deals with confidential meeting information, being records of meetings closed to the public under Section 66(2)(a). Does any councillor wish to move a motion to move into closed session? Councillor Hanson. Can be seconded. Councillor Finnegan. Councillors, by show of hands, please indicate if anyone wishes to oppose the motion. Does anyone wish to speak to the motion? No. Councillors, I'll now call for a vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried 7-0. This concludes the open part of this month's council meeting. Thank you for joining us. Thank you very much. I think we have a stretch, yep.